Hi. Hi, everyone. We'll get started real soon. We're going to wait a couple minutes till everyone gets in. All right, I'll just get started. Give me 1 second, actually. Okay, great. So yeah, I know you guys probably don't know. Some of you may not know me, but I'm not your instructor for this course. But Sohan had he had a prior engagement today, so he couldn't teach the class today. So I'll just be taking over for him today. So yeah, if you guys were in the previous class, this previous session that we had where we taught Python, Java, web design, and all that, you guys probably know me. I taught the Python and Java courses along with another instructor. So yeah, my name is Shivam. I'm also, if you guys know, I'm leading these courses. I'm a sophomore at the University of Washington studying computer science. So yeah, I'll just be teaching you guys for Python today. And since I haven't been teaching these previous classes, I just wanted to ask you guys some quick questions just to make sure that I'm like on the same page as you guys, knowing where you guys are at in terms of like the Python course. So before we do that, we are going to be starting an Android programming class. So if any of you guys are interested in learning Android programming, so Android programming traditionally would be learned through Java, but this will actually be a different language. Check out an email we sent out earlier today on more details about that course and like setup and everything if you're interested in that. So if you want to learn how to code Android apps, it's a pretty useful tool. Like I've learned it in school and all that. So yeah, Android's a really good tool to learn. So yeah, check out that email and all that stuff on the email that we sent. So yeah. Now in terms of questions, anyone have questions or anything to say right now? Or in the chat, you can feel free to use the chat as well. Okay. Is there a chat actually? I can't even see.
For the past few days, the chat's been like disabled and it hasn't been working.
Okay. Okay. That works. That's fine. So if you guys want to say something, I guess we won't have chat today. So just you can unmute yourself. That's totally fine as well. Unmute yourself to ask a question. But yeah, so right now I'm gonna ask you guys a couple of questions. Just any of you guys can unmute and like shout it out, whatever works for you guys. So first question I have, guys, is have you guys gone over functions? If you guys understand what that word means in Python.
No.
Sorry, I didn't hear that. What exactly did you say?
No.
No, you guys haven't. Okay. Have you guys gone over like user input, taking input from the user?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. And then have you guys gone over for loops, while loops, and if statements?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. And then I know, so he was telling me he's using similar coursework that we used last time. So have you guys gone over that example? It's fine if you guys don't remember, but an example basically to tell whether a number is a prime number or not. Have you guys gone over that example?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Okay, cool. Cool. Thanks, guys. So yeah, let's just get started now. I'll share my screen. Let me see if this chat, yeah, it seems like there's no chat. Okay, I can't really do anything about that right now, but we'll just get started. So can I just confirm you guys can all see my screen? You guys can see a terminal and all this. Sublime.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So yeah, we'll get started. I'm gonna go over that prime number example again. Again, just stop me, guys, if you guys have any questions or anything. So we'll start out like this, just input a number. So as you guys know, this is how you take input with the parentheses, and then you put your string basically on what you would want to tell the user to input. And then I put an int around this basically just to ensure that whatever the user inputs, I make sure that it is in fact a number. Integer, if you guys know, this is how you cast it to make sure that the input is a number rather than like a word or a decimal or something like that. So yeah, so, and then what we did, what you guys did, I think, is you guys did like a for x. So remember, for a for loop, this first variable basically just means anything. For x in this range from 2 to n, range 2 to n. Basically meaning range again is it will start at 2 and end the number before n. So whatever the input, so whatever the user inputs is assigned to the variable n, and then you'll use it in your for loop like that. And then you guys had an if statement like this: if n modulo x is equal to 0. Anyone have any questions on what modulo means? Nope. Okay, cool. Then we had n equals like x, and then you could say like n divided by x here. I'll just type this out and then I'll show you guys. Oh, so we actually did include a Boolean variable. Yeah, Boolean again, remember guys, is a true or false. So here we go. So then if we say if temp is equal to false, oh yeah, so this was our prime number sort of example from last time. So this, just to confirm guys, this is what you guys went over, right? Okay, yeah, so here when we run it, if you guys see, it's telling us to input a number. Let's say I'll put in 12, then it says 12 equals 2 times 6. So the reason, if you guys know, this division basically just will take whenever you divide in Python, your output will always be a decimal like this. So even if you have a whole number, 12 divided by 2 in this case, they'll output 6.0, but sometimes you just want it to output that 6, right? So what you guys can do is something called a floor division, and then that will allow you to just show up as 6 like that. So those are the like main differences you have between floor division and division. But in terms of getting this program to work, we can try out with a prime number like 11. Then you see 11 is a prime number. So yeah, this is working completely fine. We're using a Boolean variable to basically check whether it's a value is it true, otherwise it's false. So then we print out that it's a prime number. So this is basically the initial, if I was creating this would be like the initial version of it. And then I want to create sort of like a more complex thing if I was creating this in a program. So we'll comment this out for now, and then we'll get into like sort of the next steps. So this is where we talk about functions. So functions in Python are essentially, think of it as sort of like an entire block of code that you can call. Let's say I want to find, I have a word and I want to find out whether the letter A is in that word. So I can use a function that says like check A, then it inputs like a string, a word, and then it goes through the string and checks whether that letter A is in it. So that's sort of an example of a function. So in this case, we'll make a prime function where we input a number, we have an input number n, and then we check whether it's a prime number, and then we'll output and say whether it's a prime number or not. So yeah, so we'll do with the function. So the way you start with a function is using these 3 letters right here, def, def, which basically is define. So you're defining a function and the name of your function will come next. So you want to make sure you include a space and then you put prime. So prime is just the name of a function. This, I can call this whatever I want. I can call this like check prime, or I can just call it find prime or something like that. You can name it whatever you want. I'm just going to call it prime for now. It makes it easier. And then in the parentheses is where sort of your arguments would go. What arguments go into this function? So basically for a prime function, the only argument that would really go in here is a number, like a singular number. So we'll call that n. Again, in here, this can be named whatever you want. I can name it num, number, n, a, x, whatever you want. So I'm just gonna name it n. These fields are basically up to you, so like created by the programmer, whatever you want to name it. So yeah, we have defined prime n. So this is how you define a function. And then you want to include this colon right here, basically to say everything that I indent under this function, everything I indent under this line will be included in my function. So yeah, so now we can basically just do the same thing. I'll just copy and paste it just to make it a little bit quicker. So we have for x in this range, excuse me. Yeah, and then instead of doing a break here, because the reason we did a break before was because we're not in a function. We used a for loop and then we wanted to break out of the loop. In a function, a different way to basically break out of a function is you can return a value. So I'll go over what returning a value exactly means. Oops. So we have return false there, return true, and then this would be our function. So basically how this process would work in this function is we define our function here, and then we have a for loop, and then the if statement, so you guys understand all of that, and then we print it out whether if it actually is divisible by that number and mod x, and then basically we're returning false. So what this line 15 does, where we return false, basically says if we find a number that is divisible by n, meaning it's not a prime number, we want to return this function to false and terminate the function. So whenever you return a value, the function is terminated and will end. So anything, so if I were to say like over here print x or something, or yeah, print x and like print n or something, these lines would not even execute, just because it's already returning. So these lines would like never get executed. And then same thing here, where basically the reason I have this return true outside the indentation is basically if it goes through this entire for loop and never returns false, then that means we found a prime number. So we just want to return true. Does that all make sense, guys? Any questions on that? Yeah.
For line 11, when it says def prime and then in brackets it says n, does that mean that you're defining the rest of the stuff after the colon as n?
So basically, the way you can think of it is I define this prime. So prime is the name of the function. Then n is basically a parameter or like an argument that I use for this function. So when I'm using a prime function, I want to have like a number as the argument, meaning this function is taking in a number to determine whether that is prime or not. So everything here is basically, I guess it's relating to n. And this is usually just to check whether that number is prime or not. So like, again, I could also just, if I were to not input anything, not put any number here, then I will just use this value of n, but it's nice to have an argument here. So yeah, and then I'll just show you guys what happens when we run it. So I'll just run prime, we'll just say print prime of n. So again, n is equal to whatever we input. Up here, I defined it up here. I'll just move it down to make it a little bit clearer. So yeah, n is our input, and then we print it out here. So I'll show you guys how that works. Yeah, so we'll run it, input a number, and we'll put 17 now, and then it says true. So obviously it didn't print out whether it's a prime number or not yet. I haven't done that part yet, but it just printed out true. So which is what we want. 17 is a prime number. If I try it out with 15, 15 equals 3 times 5, false. So yeah, that's all working fine. So now what I can do is in an if statement, I can say if prime of n, then I'll say print, we'll do this exact statement, print that. Otherwise, we'll say print the number is not prime. Oh, we'll just say n is not prime. So now when I run it, we'll say 14. 14 equals 2 times 7, n is not prime. Same thing, 19, 19 is a prime number. So yeah, so that's all working good. So if you guys are confused about this if statement in Python, I don't know if Soham went over this exactly, but if you have like if prime of n without any sort of like conditional saying like if prime of n is equal to true, true, or like false or something like that, you can just say if prime of n, and Python will basically say that this statement is already, it's basically that equals true is already there. So if you say if prime of n, that's basically saying is prime of n true, else it's meaning if it's false, then it'll print out this. So yeah, that's how this if statement sort of works. Yeah, so that's it for this prime example and quick function example. Any questions on this?
On line 14, what does the double slash mean?
On this line? So this double slash, remember, is like a floor division. So when we were doing the single division in Python, we were getting an output. So I'll show you again. We're getting like a decimal like that. So if I just did the floor division, then I got a single number like that. It was basically just for looks, making sure that I look good. But yeah. Like another thing that floor division is used for, so I'll quickly just show you guys. So basically I'll go into like a Python console right here in my terminal. And then if I were to do, so for example, 5.0 divided by 2, I'll get 2.5. So that's just normal division. This is a separate example, guys. I'm just showing you the difference. This is normal division. And then if we do 5.0 using floor division, which is a double slash, then it will just give me 2. So basically, when you use floor division, it will give you the integral part of the division. If you guys have like remember that word from math, integral meaning like whatever is not the remainder. So 5 divided by 2 gives you a value of 2 with the remainder of 1. So same thing if I do like 5.0. Oh wait, 5. Sorry, you can't use that. Then we get a 1. But if I were to do 5 like that, then we get 2. And if I do, yeah, you guys get it now. Floor division basically just will give you like the non-remainder part, but modulo will give you the remainder part. And then if you use the decimal, this will give you the exact value. So yeah. Any questions on that? Okay, cool. Let's see. Okay, so we're gonna get into another function now. I'll comment this out. So now, we're gonna create another function using strings. So this will again further enforce that concept of like bringing in arguments, parameters. So if you guys don't know, whatever you put in these parentheses are called parameters in computer science. Parameters are sort of, just how it's explaining your arguments that you take into your function to basically determine some value or alter some value, whatever it is. So we'll go into some other examples like that. So right now, so for example, if I wanted to take a string and be able to sort of multiply it. So if I took a function and I took in these parameters, a string called like hi, and then an integer with 2, I would want to return something that is like this. Basically saying, okay, I want this string printed out this many times. So if I were to do hi and 4, then I'll print hi, 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 like that. So like that's sort of how this function would work. Again, these are just examples on different functions, nothing like, we're not building anything right now. But yeah, here we go. So we have another function. I'm gonna call it string times. And this time we will take in, I'll just call it word and num. So word and num. So again, these are just words are parameters, variable names that I made up. So word would represent this, and then num would represent this. So now if I were to do this, then I could just say final, well, we'll just say string. String is equal to an empty string. So this is basically what I would want to end up returning, my overall string. So that's why so I know that I have a word and a number, and I want to return an overall string. So this is going to be my overall string that I return. Now I just have to figure out how I have to get basically the correct output based on this. So now that I know I have a number, I can sort of, let's see, I'll just loop through this number. So we'll say like 4 n in range of num. So that means it will loop through this 4 times. Then I can just say string plus equals word. And then I'll return my string. So then now we can print out string times with pi and 4. So basically what this is doing, so I know it's looping through 4 times, which is, or if I were to input 4 for this case, it would loop through it 4 times, then add the word hi to my result string, and then return that string at the end. So now if I were to print this out and run it, we get hi, 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 like that. Exactly. So that's exactly what we wanted. If I were to change this, let's say like to hello, and we'll change it to 2. So I should just get hello, hello. Then we get, yeah, exactly like that. Hello, hello. So yeah, this is just like another function you guys can use. Yeah, any questions on that?
I don't get what line 25 through 29 like does.
Line 5 through, okay.
Cool.
Yeah, any other questions on this? I'll just knock all the questions out if anyone has anything else.
Can you do string equals word times num?
Sorry, I can't really hear you.
Can you do string equals word times num?
Sorry, it's really, is anyone else able to hear her? It's really soft for me.
Can you do string equals to word times num?
Yeah, that's another thing, yeah, you could do. I just wanted to show a for loop for this. But yeah, that is another one. So yeah, you can also just do, let me do it real quick. I'll get to your question explaining all those lines, but this is what they're saying. You can do string. Yeah, I think this should work. Yeah, there we go. So we get hello, hello. And then, yeah, this would also work. I just wanted to show a for loop. Yeah, so this one's working fine too. So again, if you guys noticed right there, I tested it twice just to make sure it was working. If you guys are ever creating something in Python or any language, it's always good to like test it with different sort of cases just to make sure your code is working. So we'll go back to the original. I'll just comment that out just so other people can see. That's another sort of implementation for it. But yeah, so we start out 25 through, I guess, yeah, we'll go through the entire function. So I defined a string, defined a function, called it string times, took in two parameters, word and num. And then I created a string. So this is sort of the overall variable that I would use that I want to eventually return at the end of my function. Sorry. And then I used a for loop basically to go through the number of times that is specified by this function. So since it's 2 times here, we're going through a for loop, using a for loop to go through it twice. And then we're adding the word to this empty string. So if I were to kind of show you how this process would work, we can call string time. So I'll show you if we were to call hello and 2. So this is what we're calling. So the first time that we go through it, I'll call it the first iteration. We have string equaling to that, and then enters the for loop. So it'll go string is equal to that. It will enter the for loop, and oh yeah, so this is the first iteration. Sorry. Enters the for loop. Then the first iteration. Then you see that string plus equals word. So what is word? Word is equal to hello. So now we know that the first time that it adds string is now equal to hello. So after the first iteration, that is what string is equal to. Then now if I were to go through the second iteration, because we know that our value is 2, so range 2, it will go through it twice. So then now we add string plus equals word, and then obviously we know that word is equal to hello. Then now we know that string is equal to hello, hello. And then it will return string, and then that's how we got our output like this. Does that all make sense? Okay, cool. Yeah, I think that's it for these functions right here. Okay, I'm gonna go through, so yeah, we learned how to create our own functions and like this. So you guys have learned arrays, right? Anyone?
Yes.
Have you? Okay, cool. So yeah, you guys have learned arrays. So you guys know that's sort of like a list. So we created our own functions. We learned how to basically take a number, take a string, alter it, do something to it. So Python also has their own functions that are built in, meaning they already have functions for arrays to alter arrays, maybe add a number to array, maybe remove a number from array. They also have functions for strings to basically get certain things from strings and all that. So yeah, there's already built-in functions into the Python library that's created by whoever created the Python language or whatever, or other people. So yeah, so we have an array like this. So I'll just create an array. We'll just add a bunch of random numbers to it right here. So we have an array of 5 numbers, 100, 2, 3, 4, 20. And then one thing that you guys can do is basically remove a number from this array. So let's say I wanted to remove a number from this array. You guys, I'm not sure if you guys have learned other ways to do this, but the function that you guys can use to do this is use array.remove, and then let's say I want to remove the number 3. And then I can just print out. So I'll show you guys before and after. We print out array before we call the remove function, and then after. And then now if we were to run this, we see we got 100, 2, 3, 4, 20. And then once we call remove 3, the 3 disappears. So now we get 100, 2, 4, 20. So now that's what our array looks like. And then let's say I wanted to basically add more numbers to this array. So one thing that you can do is use this function called extend. So what extend does is it allows you to input an array into it. So let's say I put this array 5, 6, 7. Array.extend 5, 6, 7 will basically say, okay, I want to extend the current array that I have, AR. So arr.extend, I want to extend this array and add these 3 numbers into that array. So now we print out array, and I'll show you guys how this works. So now you see we first had our original array, we removed 3, And then I extended the array with 5, 6, 7. So then now 5, 6, and 7, sorry, were added to the end of the array. Yeah, so that's the extend function. So now our array has 7 values. And a couple other things that you guys can run is array.sort. I'll print that out. I'll remove this for now and remove this. So yeah, after we extend and add the 5, 6, 7, I'll print it out and then we'll sort it. I'll show you guys what this function does. So now what sort does is basically sort our array from least to greatest. So we have our numbers all scrambled up here, 100, 2, 4, 20, 5, 6, 7. And then we ended up with 2, 4, 5, 6, 7, 20, 100, which is basically sorting it from least to greatest. So yeah, sometimes depending on what you're using arrays for, obviously you guys will get into further examples later in this course. But this is really helpful, especially when I sort an array. I've used it a lot in my schoolwork and all that in college. So yeah, sort is a really helpful method. It is very complicated. You guys will maybe learn that in the future, but yeah, just use these functions for now, understand their functionality. So I'm assuming you guys, let me know if you guys learned about this. I'm assuming you guys have learned about different like indices and arrays. Like you guys know like what the index value of this number is rather than this number. Have you guys learned that?
Yes.
Yes? Okay, cool. So yeah, so as you guys know, 100 is the 0. So index counting starts at 0 and goes all the way to the end. And then you also have negative indexes. So like this is a negative index. This would be -1, -2, while this is 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. So yeah, quickly there, that's how indexes are in case you did not know. But basically you can call another sort of function on this array where you can say array.insert. Let's say I want to insert at index 3. I want to insert the number 55. So this is how this insert method works. You basically say at index, whatever index you want to insert, and then the number that you would want to insert. So for example, I can just comment these out for now. So if we have the array 100, 2, 3, 4, 20. So this is 0, this is 1, this is 2, and this is 3. So once I run insert 55 at index 3, it will basically just insert this 55 into our array. So if you guys see that, oh, I forgot to print it out. And you see we get 100, 2, 3, and then 55 is basically inserted exactly between the 3 and 4 at index 3, and then you see 4 and 20 is over there. So yeah, insert is another one in case you wanted to add something at a specific spot in your array. And then the last one I'll just go over is a pretty simple one, is just min of array, which just prints out the lowest number in your array. So it's 2 in this case, just in case you want to get the minimum number or maximum number. So yeah, these are just some examples on different functions that you can use for arrays in Python. So we did talk about basically the functions that we created on our own, but these are just already built-in functions. I'm going to give you guys a link. Actually, I realize we don't have a chat box right now, so it's hard to give a link to you guys. Let me see real quick. So here's a good link.
You can put it on the Slack.
Yeah, okay, actually, I'll do that. That's a good idea. So I'll just put it in the general channel so you guys can see. So you guys can check out that link. I just sent it to the Slack. Basically, it has a lot of different methods that you guys can use. I didn't go through all the methods, of course. I just went through a couple of them today that you can use for arrays in Python. But yeah, this link is really good. You can honestly go through other pages on this website, W3 Schools. I used it a lot when I was learning the basics of Python and stuff, just because they have a lot of like good resources and everything. So yeah, they have a lot of different methods that you can use for arrays and for other different types that you guys will learn in this course and maybe in the future. So yeah, so that should be pretty helpful. Let me get into the next part. Any questions before I move on arrays or methods or anything like that?
No.
Okay, cool. What we got next here? All right, so now we're gonna go through another function that's involving arrays. So now this function is it's kind of like a specific function. I don't know if this has like a very general use, but it's like a good way to practice using arrays and indexes in arrays. So one thing that we will do now is, if you guys don't know the length, to get the length of an array, I don't know if they went over this before, but if I just print out, let me uncomment this. if I just print out the length of an array like that, it'll basically tell me how many values are in my array. So in this case, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So if I print out length of array, we get 5. So yeah, that's just like a pretty helpful function too. So for this one, what we're going to do is basically say that if an array has the values 1, 2, and 3 in that specific order right next to each other in the array, we'll return true for this function. If it doesn't, we'll return false. So in a quick example is if we have something like this would return true. If we have something like this will return true, because you see we have 1, 2, and 3 in order right there. But if we have something like this would return false, because we do not have 1, 2, and 3 exactly in order. So the way to do this, guys, is it's a little bit more complicated. So we'll start out with defining our array. So we'll just say array 1, 2, 3, and then we'll just take in another array. So again, this is how I defined my function. This was the name of my function, and then this was the parameter, the sort of argument I take in. So first, what we would want to start out with is basically going through, using a for loop to go through the different elements in our array, because the only way that we can sort of accomplish this task is by seeing the different elements that we have in our array and understanding whether 1, 2, and 3 are right next to each other. So we'll go through for I in range of the length of our array. So first, if I were to do this will basically go through each number in my array and tell me what the number is. So for this sort of problem, that's not exactly what I would want to do. For this sort of problem, I want to be able to at each, so let's say I'm iterating through my array. Let's say I'm at the first number. I would basically want to look at this current number I'm on, the next number I'm on, and the number after that, to basically check whether 1, 2, and 3 are at each other's, right next to each other. So the way that you guys can do that, I'll kind of type out the code and then I'll explain it. It's a little bit tricky. We have range, and we do the length -2. I'll explain in a second why I do -2, but we'll do if num at value I is equal to 1, and num at value I plus 1 is equal to 2, and, oh, sorry, it's array. That's the name, sorry, yeah. Array at I plus 2 is equal to 3. That's basically checking for each number. Then we would want to return true. Otherwise, we want to return false, and make sure that is indented outside the for loop, just so that we can make sure that it will return false in case there's nothing that returns true for 1, 2, and 3. And yeah, so that's our function. So I'm going to quickly demonstrate it again. We'll do the example what we did in the beginning. So 1, 2, 3. We got true. If I were to do this, we have true again. And then if I were to run this example, get rid of that noise. Okay. If I were to run this example, then we get false. So yeah, it's working fine. We see that it's working fine. So how does this exactly work? Yeah, so this -2 is probably a little bit confusing. At least when I first learned it, it was a bit confusing to me. So that -2, the reason we use that is basically saying, because we want to be able to check the current value, the next value, and then the value after that. So I want to basically go through my array until I'm at that third to last value. So I start here and I keep going through my array until I'm on that third to last value, because I want to be able to check the number after and the number after that. Because if I, for example, if I were to go through my entire array and let's say I stopped over here, then it's going to try to check a value after that and then the value even after that. And there's no value there. So if I were to actually not use this -2 and try to run our array, let me see. Do that. Oh, I didn't save it. It would, oh wait, sorry. Let me put this. Oh, okay. Sorry, I was thinking with Java, but basically, the -2 is important so that you guys can get basically each value, like if that makes sense, like where you stop here and then it sees every value after that. An index error might get thrown sometimes, but with Python, arrays are fine. So yeah, actually this is fine right here, this -2, but that basically allows you just not to go past the array and basically check for each number like that. Does that make sense? Anyone have questions on this? Okay, cool. Yeah, so that's it for this function. So now we're going to go through sort of like another thing. So we'll think of this. So you guys have, has anyone not learned about like graphing? Like if I were to graph like a point on a plane or on like a graph, it'd be like X is like 1, Y is 2. It would go like 1 on the X axis, up 2 on like the Y axis, sort of like a coordinate plane. Has anyone not gone over that in like school and math or whatever? Okay, I'm assuming you guys have all gone through that. So yeah, we'll do like a quick coordinate plane. So think of this. So a coordinate plane is basically an array of arrays, if that makes sense. So my entire coordinate, I'll have 3 different coordinates in here. We'll have 1 and 2. Then we'll have 2 and 5. And then these are just random numbers I'm making up. So think of this as like being plotted. X is 1, Y is 2. Then like X is 2, Y is 5, X is 4, Y is 3. Just a simple sort of coordinate plane like that. This is what is considered a 2D array in any programming, honestly. So it's basically an array of arrays. That's why it's called a 2D array. Then I can sort of loop through this the same way I would loop through any other array. I can say for point in coordinate. So basically like each point, I can just print out, I'll just print out point for now. Then we get 1, 2, 2, 5, and 4, 3. You see how they print out individual arrays like that? And then now let's say, for example, I just wanted to get the first number from each one of these. I just wanted to get all the different X values. So I can say print point 0, basically saying, I want to go through this coordinate plane, access each array, and then print out that first value from that array. So point 0, and then I run it, and it'll just give me 1, 2, and 4, which is exactly what we wanted, 1, 2, and 4. So yeah, this is sort of how you can go through a plane, or coordinates, or a 2D array. So for example, if I wanted to print it out, how you would see it in like a math problem or something, I can just say print point 0. So str again, because we're printing out different values, integers and strings together, and then str of 0.1. And if I run this, clear it, then you see we got 1, 2, 2, 5, and 4, 3, which is like exactly in our plane. So the way I accessed it was I got the array. So remember, if you loop through it, you get the total array, and then I individually access each value from that array using 0 and 1. So yeah, that's just like a quick, if you guys wanted to like quickly, let's say I wanted to get the Y value from the second one, then I could say print chord. Since I know it's the second one, that's index 1, then I want to get the Y value, which is at index 1 also. So coordinate 1, 1 like that. That will print out 5. So any questions on that?
So does that mean that 0 basically represents like x-axis and then 1 represents the y-axis?
Yeah, in this case, yeah. Sometimes maybe like I actually have had a coding problem like this before. I'm not saying you guys should be able to do this right now, but like in a coding, in like a CS test I had in school, they basically switched these values. So they put Y at value 0 and X at value 1. So our job was just to switch that around. So just in this case right now, X is 0 and Y is 1, but maybe in a different problem, someone might switch it around to try to trick you up.
I have a question.
Yeah.
So on line 68 to line 71, I don't understand it.
Okay, yeah. So do you understand? Yeah, 68, you know how this is a for loop. So we're going through, so coordinate is an array of arrays. So if you use a for loop and I just were to print out point, that's basically printing out each individual array. Oh, sorry, that looks confusing. We'll comment out these for now. But yeah, this basically prints out each individual array. Do you understand this code so far?
Yeah.
Yeah. And then I said the way that you access basically. So the first time I went through the array, point was 1, 2. The second time I went through it, point was 2, 5. And then the third time I went through it, it was 4, 3. So if I were to just print out something like this, 0.0, it will basically just print out the first value from that array for each iteration. So it'll go, if you see, if you compare 1, 2, and 4, like, does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah, so then what I did for this is basically just printed out the points together with a comma separating them, just to make it look like how you would see in like a math problem. Like x, this is the x value, this is the y value. So yeah, 1, 2, 2, 5, 4, 3. So this is, I'm just kind of show you guys how you can access those individual values from a 2D array.
Okay.
And then for this line, this was basically how you can directly access different values from that 2D array. So like if I were to just print out chord 1, then it'll print out 2, 5, like that, meaning that is the value at index 1 in my 2D array. And then again, if I were to try to access this 5 value or this 2 value, so let's say I want to access this 2 value, then I'll print out 0, because that will specifically get me the 0th index. Okay, it sounds kind of complicated, but the 0th index from the first index in that 2D array.
Okay, so basically, since you put 1, 1, it was the first, it was like the first array inside the array, and then inside that, you took the second index?
All right, so if I were to do 1, 1, so remember index counting in Python, I know it's kind of confusing, but it starts at 0. So if I do 1, that's technically the second array. So like if I were to do 0, then that would be this array. But if I were to do 1, then that would be this array.
So we would print 5?
Yeah, this one would print 5. And then can you tell me what this would print if I did 0, 1?
It would print 2.
Yeah, correct. So yeah, that's literally what this is.
Okay, thanks.
No problem. How much time do we have left? Okay, we have about 15 minutes left. So I'm gonna quickly go through another example. Would you guys want me to do like a review of all this at the end?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. Yeah, great. So now we're gonna go into more about functions again. I just wanted to quickly show you guys that 2D array example. But yeah, we're gonna go more into functions again. So here I'll define a function. We'll just call it foo. Foo and bar and stuff like that. They're pretty common like default function names in any programming, honestly. So if you see that, it's just like a random defined like sort of computer science name. So yeah, in this I can put parameter x, and then I'll just say print x, and I want to I'll create another function again. So I'll combine all these together. Y comma x. I'll show you guys exactly what I'm doing. Okay, so what I'm doing here is I have a function called foo and taking a parameter x, and I'm printing out x, and then I'm calling this function bar, and then putting it with the numbers 11 and x, and then returning x plus 1. So once this function bar gets called, it takes in values y and x, and then it subtracts them. 11 minus whatever the value of x is. So in this case, it'll be 11 minus x for the bar function, and then it'll print that out. So if I were to call something like bar of foo of 111, and we'll just say like 11. So this does look like, so this is like an example of calling functions within other functions. So right here, we see that this function returns an integer value, and I need an integer value here when I'm doing the subtraction. So that's why foo 111 would work here. So I'll sort of just walk you guys through real quick. So first time we call, so we have bar foo 111 and then 11. So the first thing that we do is we see, all right, we need to call foo of 111. So we'll go foo of 111. And then now in this function, we'll print out 111 first, so that works. And then we'll call bar on 11 and 111. So then now once we go into that, sorry, it gets a little bit complicated, guys. But we have 11 and 111. So then now if I call bar on that, this would output 11 minus 111, which is negative 100. Did I do that correctly? Yeah, negative 100. And then it will return 111 plus 1, which is equal to 112. So foo of 111 will return 112. And then we have, now we're going back to our original bar call over here. So now we have bar of 112 and 11. And then if we were to run this, this would just print out 112 minus 11, which is 101. So it's a lot of computation here, a lot of different function calling and all that. Let's see if I can make this a little bit clearer. So this would print out negative 100. So I'll just run it and show you guys what happens. So we get 111. If you guys see from the beginning, we printed X, then it ran negative 100 on that call of bar of 11 and 111, which printed negative 100. And then lastly, it called this overall one, which printed 101. Does that all make sense on how those functions got called, how it kind of...
Why didn't it print 112?
Because the reason it didn't print 112 was because we returned it over here. So whenever you return something, it won't actually print it.
Okay.
I don't exactly get what bar and foo does, like what it does to the number.
What it does to the number is basically, it's just like arbitrary. You can honestly change this to whatever you like. These are just simple computations. So bar is basically just subtracting these two numbers, and foo is just printing that number and then returning that number plus 1, and also calling bar. There's no like overall like functionality. It's just like random arbitrary stuff that it's doing. This was sort of, yeah, just an example to show you guys how you can call other functions within functions. We'll make it a little bit easier. So we'll call bar of 11 and 11, for example. So this would just print, oops, cannot type, print 11 minus 11, which would just be 0. So now if I were to just call bar of 11 on an 11, oh, let me comment this out. Then we'll just get a 0. So that one's pretty simple. That's what bar is doing, just subtracting those. And then now if I called foo on, let's say 5, then what this will do is we'll print out 5 initially, and then it will call bar on 11 and 5. And then once it calls bar on 11 and 5, they'll subtract both of those numbers. So it will print out 11 minus 5, which is 6. And then lastly, it will just return 5 plus 1, which is also 6. So in this case, since I'm not printing foo, that this last number 6 won't get printed out since it's just returning that value, but these two numbers will be printed out. So we can run that. And you see we just get 5 and 6. Yeah, 5 and 6. And then if I were to actually print this out now, it will print out the return value, which is 6. So now we get 5, 6, and 6.
If it was like a different case where both of the numbers for bar weren't 11, how would, like for line number 97, how would the code pick a number?
So if they were not 11 and 11, like, are you talking about this one?
Yeah, like if they weren't the same number.
Oh yeah, if they weren't the same number, like let's say this is, we'll say 2. We'll call this again. It's basically, bar is just calling these numbers and subtracting them. So 11 minus 2 is 9. So if I were to do like 13, it would be negative 2. If I did 11, that's 0. If I did 2, that would be 9. You can just see, we'll print out 9. It's just subtracting those two numbers. That's all bar is doing. If I were to run like 5 and like 7, negative 2, it's just subtracting, you see. So now, oh yeah, go ahead.
Why did you call the functions bar
Why did I call it bar?
and foo?
Sorry, I cannot really hear you.
He said, why did you call it bar and foo?
Oh, okay. As I was explaining that, bar and foo are just like default like function names in CS. So like you can, a lot of people just name their functions just like as like default sort of things. It doesn't really mean anything, it's just arbitrary name. you can name this whatever you want. I can just name this like subtraction. I could name this like print out or something. You can name it whatever you want. I just named it foo and var because those are like standard names. Yeah, so okay, so now quickly, one more thing with functions. Yeah, we have around 8 minutes left, so I'll just call this, yeah, I'll call this print out. So we'll call it print out n. So, and then we'll just say print n. So obviously this is a very simple function. All we're doing is printing a number. So if I were to say print out 11, it'll print 11 for me. But another thing that you guys can do is sort of create default parameters. So if I were to say n is equal to 25, like that, I can already define it in my function so that when I call the function, I don't have to define it again. Meaning basically that if the user doesn't define something for that number, it will just take that default value and print that out. So since I didn't define anything here and I assigned n to 25, you see it just prints out 25. And then if I were to like not input anything, I did not put that default value, then Python will throw me an error. So the only way that you can basically call a function that requires a parameter without a parameter is if there's already a default value. So this can be any number you want, like 15, then I call it. But then also if there's a default, I can override it to make it a different number. So I print out 35, then it'll print out 35. Does that all make sense?
Yep.
Cool.
What does n equals 15 do? Or is that just separate from the 35?
Oh yeah, so what I was just saying is it basically creates a default value. So if I were to not specify anything here, then by default it'll print out 25 on the console. But I said, as I just said, yeah, I can't override it with like another value. I can make this like 40 and then it'll print out that 40 instead.
Why can't you just do print 15 or print 40 or whatever number?
Oh yeah, you can do that. I'm just showing you guys an example of default parameters.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So yeah, it looks like we just have 5 minutes left. So yeah, I won't get into another topic. I'll tell Sohan to cover it next time. But, oh yeah, one more thing actually real quick. This is a very simple one also. If I were to have a function like this, def print out, I can say new function is equal to print out. And then I can say print out new function of 20. And then it'll print out, oh, did I miss? Let me see real quick. Oh, I don't need a, let me see. Yeah, there. So then you call new function of 20 and it prints out 20. I accidentally printed it twice. Yeah, that was the reason that error happened. But yeah, this is basically meaning that you can assign variable, you can basically assign functions to variables. So if I wanted to, for some reason, create a copy of some function, I can assign it to a variable and then use that new name to call that function. So yeah.
Could you also,
yeah, go
could
ahead.
you also just change it in like the definition part on line 101?
Yeah, you can do that too. This is just like another, some people, there's some cases where you need this, but yeah, I won't go into that right now. So yeah, you can also change that.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'll just quickly review everything that we went through today. So we'll start out at the top. So yeah, you guys went over this last time, so I won't go into that again. But here we started out with functions. So yeah, we took a user input and then sort of defined a function that was called prime. So remember, you use def to define a function. It sort of means define in Python, and then the name of your function, and then whatever parameters you need, and then this colon. So then what you guys can do is then use this for loop and this if statement. That's how you guys learned last time for the prime, for determining a prime number, and then you print that out if there actually is a number divisible. And then we learned this return value in function. So we return false and then we return true. So basically return false if it finds a number that is divisible, and then return true if it can go through the entire for loop without finding a number. So remember, when you return a value, that will basically completely terminate the function, and then it won't execute anything afterwards. That's basically how return values work. And then, yeah, so we ran it here. Quickly show you guys again. Input a number, 15. and then it printed out 15 equals 3 times 5 and is not prime. So yeah, we use this if statement. In this if statement, we said if prime of n, and we did not really, you can include this equals true, but you don't have to, because Python will say, if you just say if prime of something, that means that it will basically already means that if it evaluates it true. So Python's good about that, that if you just put the name of the function or whatever, that means it's true. So yeah, this else statement would be for the false one. And yeah, I think that's good for this. And then we went into another function with string times. Remember, we took in a word and a number. So there's two sort of solutions to this. I wanted to show you guys the solution with the for loop, where you say for n in this range of the number of times that you specify. So we specified 2 times for hello. And then we printed that out and we got hello, hello. So the way that, yeah, this worked, I sort of went through the iteration is it went through, you say string starts out empty. First iteration, it adds the hello the first time. And the second iteration, it adds hello again. And then once that number terminates, then it will return that string. So for example, if this was 4, these two, this would basically get executed 4 times and it would add hello 4 times. So as you guys can see, we got hello, 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 hello. So yeah, that's just how this function works. The other sort of implementation for this was you could just do string equals word times num. It's obviously much more simple. You can just, that will basically allow you to multiply that word how many ever times you would want. So yeah, that's good for this one. I went through, yeah, some other array functions that you can use. So we have an array here. Then if I can call this remove to remove the number 3 from the array. Extend allows me to add other numbers to my array, multiple numbers at the end. Oh, I don't think, yeah, I forgot one more thing. You can just do array.append to just add one number. Sorry, I forgot to go over that one. But extend basically allows you to add multiple numbers. Append is just adding a singular value. So if I were to run this, then we get 102, 4, 20, and 10 because we removed the 3 initially and then we added a 10. So yeah, that's how append works. Append is another function that you guys can use. And then yeah, sort basically goes from least to greatest. Insert allows you to insert a value at a specific spot in the array. And then minimum gets the lowest value in the array. And then length gets the total length of your array. How many values are in your array? So yeah. So yeah, it looks like it's 6 o'clock right now. So if you guys, I'm going to quickly go through the rest of this review, but if you need to go somewhere, the recording will be online for you guys to see. I know I think there was an issue with the recordings from the past couple of weeks for this class. So I'm not sure if weeks 2 and 3 were posted, but we'll get that out soon along with today's recording. So yeah.
I have a question.
Yeah, sure.
The Slack link, I have been trying to access it, but every time I click on it, it says this link has been moved or changed and it won't let me sign up for it. And I even sent an email asking, but is there another way to access the Slack link?
Oh yeah. Did you access that Slack through the tiny URL?
Yeah.
Okay, let me update that link. Hopefully, I think we might have a new link or something. Yeah, let me update that link. If not, can you email me at, like, if you see my name, shivam1@gmail.com. So it's just my name, all lowercase, number 1@gmail.com. Email me again. I'm not sure where your email went, but yeah, just email me and I'll get you set up too, in case that link doesn't work. But I'll update it first and see if that works.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, now we have this function right here, array 1, 2, 3, which basically we checked to see whether the numbers 1, 2, and 3 appeared one after another. So we have array at I is equal to 1, I plus 1 is equal to 2, and I plus 2 is equal to 3. This basically just checked our current value, the value after that, and then the value one more after that. This is like a pretty cool implementation just to check that the values 1, 2, and 3 came, and then we tested it out with our different, we have a lot of different output here. There we go. And yeah, so we got true because we have 1, 2, and 3 in succession over there. So yeah, there we go. And then we have our coordinate right here, coordinate plane. So this one, we have a 2D array. I introduced the concept of that, an array inside another array. So then once we ran this, we printed out each value by accessing the array inside plus like the X and Y values. And then this was just an example of how you can directly access a value from your 2D array, an array inside of an array. I'll go through this and then I'll go through the foo and bar again. So yeah, we have print out, guys. Remember, another function, we defined the value, the function print out. So obviously you can just call print, but I just wanted to show you guys default values. So n equals to 15. Once if I were to just not call anything, we just went over this, then you can call print out, which will print out 15, or I can override it with the value that I would like and I call 25. So yeah, that worked. And then yeah, again, you can assign functions to another function and print out like that. So we get 20. If I were to just put a new function like that, then we get 15. So the same thing there. So you can assign functions to you can assign variables to functions. That's what I mean. Okay, quickly wrapping up now. So we have bar and foo right here. So this was, again, a little bit complicated. We're calling another function within a function. So we have this function foo where we printed the value x, whatever this parameter was. Then we called the function bar with the values 11 and x, where bar is just a function that subtracts the two values, and then we return the value of x plus 1, meaning whatever was inputted initially plus 1. So with this bar foo 111, what it initially does is it called foo of 111 and then printed out that 111, then called bar of 11 and 111, which printed out a negative 100, and then returned that value of 112, which then it called, because remember we called it over here, so it calls bar of 112 and 11, and then you print out that value again, which is just 101, and then our function terminates. So I'll show you guys how that worked again. Oh yeah, I forgot to print it out. Oh wait, did I mess something up here? It still should have printed. Oh yeah, there we go. So yeah, we have 11, negative 100, and 101. So yeah, that's basically it for today, guys. Hopefully it wasn't too bad, too much of a change. I know, yeah, Sohan was out today. He'll be back next week. So yeah, that's it for today. Thank you guys for joining. If you have any other questions or anything, stay after class, you can ask me, even if it's not relating to this class, anything else in general. So yeah, thanks for joining.
Thank you.
Can you go a little bit back up again, please?
Yeah, sure. Any other questions or anything? Okay, yeah, I think we're good then. If you're done looking at the code. So yeah, that's gonna do it for class today. Hopefully it was okay. Thanks for coming again.